Welcome to Corrective Consciousness episode 102, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. I almost said the old intro.
Yeah, I heard that.
I heard that.
I am your host, vysethebold, and I was reading this.
Yeah, days without Vice screwing up, :0.
Fuck. And this is...
Lotus Prince.
And PyroJackFrost.
Oh, man. At this point, I don't think I'm ever going to edit out my flubs. I think I'm just going to leave them in because it's part
fine.
of...
Not to
part
hell
of
with it.
yeah, part of the canon of
warning.
Corrective Consciousness.
This is canon.
Yeah. So once again, this is our second episode on the new YouTube channel, Corrective Consciousness YouTube channel. If you are on Lotus's YouTube channel, please click the link below in order to get to the new Corrective Consciousness YouTube channel. This is where the home of Corrective Consciousness will be after another 2 weeks. So we will have 2 more recons and 2 more core cons after this episode, and on both channels. And then we will do a couple. We will do some trailers after that to get people over to the Corrective Consciousness page to keep reminding them that we are still producing it. However, in the meantime, please do subscribe and continue to comment on the new page rather than Lotus's, because we want you guys over there. We don't want to lose our audience. We will have to retain you, especially in the new era where I think our new format is much improved. So I'm really enjoying it. So I can't wait to usher in the new era of Corrective Consciousness here with basically 2.0 here. So what I want to explore this episode, we had some pretty interesting things to talk about last episode. We went pretty in depth, didn't we, Lotus?
Yes.
Sounds like that's an understatement.
Jesus. I was looking for some help and some exposition.
Oh, for last week? Okay. I mean, we did talk for a good long time on it, though, and we were able to kind of cover two aspects of the question rather than just the simple meaning. Because last week we covered what is your white whale in video games, and in that vein, there were sort of 2 ways of looking at it. The game that you've always wanted to play but just never got around to, or the one you've actively sought but either couldn't get or it's like stupidly expensive, so you're like, no.
To give you an update on that, Lotus and I went to too many games this weekend, and I
and you
tried to get a copy.
That shit.
Yeah, no, I lost my hand and everything. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Call me Ishmael. But what ended up happening was I did find a copy of The Adventures of Batman and Robin. It was like $100. So
I found a copy of Inbox Hagane, and it was like 3,000. And I was like, next time.
I actually had a physical copy of Hagane.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was I sold it for like a cool $350, so I don't regret it. I mean, I'll play it on an EverDrive at this point.
Yeah, fuck that. And the funny thing is, after all that, the game is like, all right.
No, it's a fun game, but like, if it were Snatcher, like, I actually have a lot of love for Snatcher, so I want an actual copy of that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Hagane is cool, but it's like, it's good.
Yeah. So, but I don't have like an emotional attachment at all to Hagane. So, sure, I'll sell that shit. I only bought it for, I don't know, maybe $60 back in the day, something like that. So,
yeah.
But anyway, this week we are going to talk about side characters in video games that we really like. I have recently been thinking a lot about a lot of the characters that have been coming across in my games, and for the most part, I think in story-based games, the side characters are what make the game in a lot of ways.
When I was thinking about this question, I originally thought I really like side characters that have like a story and have character growth, etc., etc. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that there are plenty of side characters that really don't say anything or do anything. They're just there. So, for instance, I'm going to start it off.
Go for it.
I was just saying that I was thinking about side characters, and I'm like, you know what? Yoshi is actually a really good side character, but he has absolutely no story in the original, yet he was one of the best characters
Yoshi's
in the game.
story he did.
Oh, okay, fine.
Well, yeah, in the original, wasn't there like a little box where it's like, "Hi, I'm Yoshi" or something, and then like you ride on him, and that's it.
But he had no character growth. He was just the nice little dinosaur that helped.
He was an accessory, yeah.
Yeah, but he's a good support character. But then on the other hand, there's characters that I was thinking about in, I don't want to say just like Mega 10 games, but like say like Wheatley or what's GLaDOS. Like they're support characters, even though they're antagonists, but they have character growth and they do a whole bunch more to add to that story.
I would go with that too. Yeah.
Yeah. You go. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go for it. Keep going.
All right, because I interpreted this question a little bit differently because it says favorite supporting characters, so that can mean side character, but also a character that supports. So I have kind of two answers, and they're both from Half-Life 2. Because when you were saying the side characters are sometimes more interesting than the main character, you're a silent protagonist in Half-Life, right? So like every other person in the game at least says something, so they kind of bring out your best attributes. Like, this isn't my answer, but Barney is kind of entertaining in Half-Life 2's
cool.
in his beginning scene, where the professor's like, now, Mr. Freeman, or Dr. Freeman, go and press that switch over there to activate the machine, and then you go over and like this is like basically a tutorial stage, so you like climb a ladder and interact with the switch, and it's like, good work, Freeman, and then Barney chimes in and he's like, yes, wow, Gordon, like that doctorate really, like, at MIT really paid off, didn't it? You pulled a switch. Like, I love stuff like that. But probably Alex in Half-Life 2 is fantastic because she is the plot and greatly supports you and the plot, and at times you're supporting her. But for a character who supports, this is like my main man here. Do you remember that one level in Half-Life 2 where the gimmick is you're going up a skyscraper, but one of those, I forgot what they called, the War of the Worlds tripod alien things.
They're Strider.
Thanks,
Strider.
A Strider's just on the outside of the building, and it's targeting you with its like laser. So if you're ever in front of an open window, it just blasts the crap out of you. So the gimmick of that level is do your best to navigate the building without getting spotted. So wait for it to pass by and stuff. You can kill them with multiple rockets, but more than you have on you, like you have to go to an infinite ammo box to refresh your rockets, right? But one of the times I played the game, this was like not my first playthrough. You know how there are some like NPC characters during those like big epic fights that are kind of fighting alongside you, and they may die or they may not? Well, NPCs have infinite ammo. So there was one time I was playing the Strider level, and my NPC buddy was a rocket launcher guy, and I kept positioning myself in a way where he could see the Strider and shoot at it, and he just fucking killed it. And I just walked up the level with nothing. It was like, yeah, that's my guy right there.
That's awesome. Yeah. Not only is it not a scripted character, but like it's just like a cool situation that happens from a supporting
it's
character.
Unintended, and it takes longer than the real way, but it's allowed to happen, and it's kind of funny. But otherwise, I'll probably go with, as far as gameplay is concerned, any side character who assists you and is invincible, like Elizabeth from BioShock Infinite. The entire game is an escort mission, so people were like, "Oh shit!" But it turns out not really. She's with you,
pretty useful.
Yeah, she's with you. Is never in actual danger. With button presses,
she finds money for you.
Yeah, with QuickTime. Well, not really QuickTime, but she'll summon objects or items for you to use. It's like there is no downside to having her with you at all. Yeah. It's great.
And I was actually thinking with BioShock. What's the character's name?
Booker?
No, in BioShock 1, the guy who's giving you instructions. I know who it actually is, but
Atlas.
But no, who did he say he was before you
Atlas.
found it out?
Atlas.
No,
Atlas.
he never said that he was Atlas because he was supposed to be this other guy, and then you found out that he was Atlas, and he was telling you what to do.
No. He was supposed to be Atlas.
But I thought he had another name in the beginning of the story.
No, his other name is who he really is. Atlas was the alias.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Atlas is the alias.
Okay.
So at this point, that's already the spoiler. So whatever. You
But
might as well.
anyway,
Yeah.
before you found out that that's who that actually was, like I
Yeah.
thought he was a pretty interesting support character.
Oh
And
yeah,
Fontaine was good too.
Well, yeah, and they pulled the same thing in System Shock 2 with the person who was leading you through the ship the whole time, like Polito, who's just really being a hard ass and like, you need to get your job done, soldier. Well, you're not a soldier, but like, and then toward the end of the game, you find that she's just been dead, and it was Shodan pretending to be Atlas, and you're like, oh, and like that reveal's fantastic.
Yeah, I have a couple, quite a few here, but I one of my favorite categories of side character in video games is merchants, because
Okay.
in a lot of old school RPGs they really put a lot of detail into the static sprite screens of these merchants, so they gave them a lot of personality even if they didn't like have much to do outside of being a merchant. So in going with this, one of the famous ones that Kurt from Hardcore Gaming 101 pointed out was in Wonder Boy and Monster World. You have this pig merchant who is essentially like a pirate. He has an eye patch and like he's smoking with his hoof.
Yeah, and by the way, if this sounds familiar to anyone, the Cuphead merchant is a reference to that guy.
Yeah. So he really has gotten a following ever since the remake too, because they gave him a lot more animation and like he's shown up in promotional materials and things like that. So I think he has a lot of fans in particular. Just his design was cool, and he's a smoking pig. I mean,
Yeah, and actually,
that's charming.
Regarding that kind of fleshed out merchants, this is a much more obscure answer, but Fragile Dreams for the Wii has a merchant.
Yes, that
Oh,
merchant.
you've played that?
I played it at one of my friends in New Jersey.
Nice.
In like middle school,
Sure. Probably high
whenever it
school,
was,
yeah.
high school.
Yeah, it's on the
I
Wii
played it
or-
when I was in college, but my friend
Yeah,
from
yeah,
high
yeah.
school. Yeah.
But this merchant is fascinating because he actually has a story, and you don't really get much of it until the last scene in the game you see him with. Like you could play more of the game and it'll still show up, but there's like a scene where you see him. But the way the merchant works is that you go to bonfires to rest and say, I don't remember to save your game, but you certainly go to rest, and randomly the merchant will come by. So if you want the merchant to come by and he's not there, just leave and go back in. It's a little inconvenient, but he'll just walk in with this like shopping cart and just like, what do you want to buy or sell or whatever. But what's interesting about him is when you first see him, he looks like just a dude with this giant like chicken mask on him, and there's one part where you see him adjust the mask and he has like glowing red eyes under it, and it's implied that he's like some kind of robot, and you're like, I guess I won't say anything. And like, it's just kind of interesting. And the last scene you see with him, you see he's actually a merchant for a specific reason. He's not in it for the money. He actually kind of wants to like find items that might be interesting for a specific reason that I won't go into. But he's looking for items for someone else. And it's just kind of clever that like, what better way to do it?
That reminds me of the merchant in Castlevania Legacy of Darkness for the N64.
Oh, that guy's the best.
I don't remember that guy.
Just even
So-
regular Castlevania 64. He's like the
Yeah.
devil-looking guy.
So he's basically like a guy. He's the only sort of normal-looking being in the game, but he has like red eyes. So,
Yeah, and he
like,
clearly has like an old school like devil tail with a triangle point at the end.
Yeah, and so I'm not spoiling this for anybody because like nobody's gonna go back and play this game.
Yes.
It So it turns out that if you rely on the merchant too much and buy too many like health items and things like that from him, he actually like wants to steal your soul.
That was part of a contract that you weren't made clear of in the beginning of the game. He's like, "Oops, you spent more than $20,000 or $30,000. Like that means you've crossed this threshold where I come to collect." And you're like, "Wait, what?"
And he turns out to be the hardest boss in the game, not Dracula, but him.
Yeah, I've never actually fought him. Yeah, because in the last area of the game, you walk up this really long staircase, and then there's this big empty room, and then you just pass through it, and you go up another really long staircase, another big empty room, and you just pass through it, and then a third long staircase, and there's Dracula. But it turns out the first two empty rooms have, if you trigger the boss fights, those could also be the boss fights, and the merchant is one of them. The other, for the record, is a vampire hunter you meet really early in the game who has been bitten, and if you take like too many days in the game's day and night cycle, then he will have turned and will also become an endgame boss.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So, but the merchant, he goes full demon because he looks like a human with a modern day business suit with a briefcase, but he's got that demon tail, and you're like, and he doesn't try to disguise. He's like, yeah, I'm a demon. I got shit to sell, but like, yeah, when he goes full demon and fights you, it's like, oh no.
Speaking of Castlevania, I was gonna say a good support character is Death.
Yeah,
Death is awesome. The different incarnations of Death are always surprising too. In fact, I would say that Castlevania is full of them. I mean, like, and merchants tend to be really cool side characters. So, how about the librarian in Symphony of the Night? Yeah, I mean, it's like, what are you even doing here? Like,
yeah, I do love stuff like that where it's like. Yeah, I mean, this is, in my opinion, this is
Resident Evil 4. Like, what are you even doing here?
And he's got glowing red eyes sometimes.
Yeah, why do you have why do you have the Plagas, you know? Like,
yeah, he apparently has the Plagas. But this is more of a stupid example, but I do like the normalcy in a horrible situation. Like in Silent Hill Downpour, there's like a DJ. That was actually the most disappointing reveal of all, because as you play through the game, there are various radios you come across that have music, but sometimes you hear like a DJ's voice, like, and now for our next song, and you're like, what the fuck? And it was like the most disappointing reveal, where you go to the radio station and there's actually a fucking DJ for Silent Hill. I'm like, what? Like, are you kidding me with this?
Let me see. There's also another merchant that I wanted to mention. Do you guys remember the Skate or Die games for the NES?
The only thing I know about them is the famous, like, skate or die. Like, I don't know the actual game.
Skate or die. Skate or die is how it goes.
That's how it goes? Okay.
But that's in Skate or Die 2. So there are 3 games for the NES in that series. There's Skate or Die, Ski or Die, and Skate or Die 2.
Ski or Die is fantastic.
Yeah. So, Skate or Die 2 is actually the departure. Ski or Die is more like a sequel to Skate or Die, because it's a snowboarding game. But
it's not a skiing game?
Yeah, wait.
Wait a second.
It just sounds better.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Sounds better. So the merchant in the first 2 games, Skate or Die and Ski or Die, is named Rodney, and he is definitely a carbon like recreation of Rodney Dangerfield. And so it's just pretty cool that he's in there. Now, let me see here. I also am a big fan of the Ys series. You guys know, and it is the home of one of the best supporting characters of all time.
Which
Dogi,
one?
The Wall Crusher.
The Wall Breaker guy?
Oh, yes, Dogi.
So Dogi straight up becomes a main playable character later on in the series, but for the most part, he was a supporting cast character, and the most prominent one. He is the... probably other than Adol, the only other character that recurs more than any other character. So he's Adol's best friend, and he comes along with him on his adventures, and he usually gets Adol out of a bind. So the Ys games have never been really known for their story. In fact, each game relies on a bunch of tropes that were set up from the very first game. And it's kind of a joke that these things keep happening to him. So at the beginning of every game, he literally is on a ship going somewhere,
and he gets shipwrecked.
And he gets shipwrecked, and then he is taken care of by some maiden.
Yeah, who ends up being really important.
Yeah, exactly. And they're always in a far-off land. Yeah. And one of the other things that happens is Adol usually gets attacked and put into prison. And Dogi gets his name from this. He crushes the wall and saves him and breaks him out of jail in almost every game. So that he's in. The funniest one was in Ys 4, Dawn of Ys for the PC Engine. There are several different versions of Ys 4, but Ys 4 has the for the PC Engine is the only one with the scene in it. So Dogi breaks Adol out of jail, and then you follow Dogi back out of jail through the various holes that he has made throughout the entire jail. Apparently he made this huge maze of holes to get to you. It's Jesus, he really dug through this place in order to get to you. And he breaks these walls with his bare hands. Yep. So it's just really awesome, and he's funny. And then you get to the very last one, and it's right next to a door that can easily be opened. So it's just dough. But I also wanted to mention Gilder in Skies of Arcadia.
He's fun.
Yeah. So he is basically the older brother archetype to Vise.
He's almost like another dad. He has that
another father figure. Exactly. And it's cool to see him go take a new pirate on his shoulders and be like, this is what you got to do, and you can still be a rogue and be a good guy,
Yeah, Vice is trapped on an abandoned island. Gilder rescues him because he just happens to be going by. So it turns out it's a pirate ship, but Gilder's super laid back. He's like, hey, it must have been a while since you've actually piloted anything. You want to take my ship for a spin right now? After 5 minutes of being on my ship, and you're like, oh shit, okay. It's pretty great.
Yeah, and he's like a ladies' man character, so he's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I also like that he has the pirate pistols and old-fashioned pirate pistols as his weapons. He's just a really cool character.
By the way, you know what I thought was really clever that I never noticed the first time I played Skies of Arcadia, because you can't notice it, is how the one woman who actually is always chasing him and he wants something to do with, Clara.
His Amy Rose, yeah.
Yeah, you meet Clara before you meet Gilder. Ica and Fina are rescued by Clara, and they wake up in her bed, and they're like, oh, what? Where are we? And you could see on a table she has a picture of Gilder, and at the time there's no way you could know who that is. Yeah. But they established that early. I was like, that's super clever. Actually, here's a classic example. Magus from Chrono. You think he's a villain, and then he joins your party? Are you kidding me?
Spoilers.
Oh, yeah, all right.
So much so that I actually fought him and defeated him, and he never became part of my party.
Yeah, you refused to, yeah. Yeah, I do like... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
No, I was just going to say, I do like characters that, should not gel with you, but circumstances bring them on. There's also... Oh, no. I forgot the name of the guy in Star Ocean 3, voiced by Crispin Freeman. Faye is the main guy you play as. There's Cliff, the brawler guy who is just kind of the macho man. Nell's the woman with the insane projectile attack. But I think it's Alba or Albel. That guy just looks like he should be a villain. And he's just with you, and he's one of the most devastating guys. You have victory quotes in that game, and one of them is it doesn't matter how many maggots you bring to me, I'll crush them all. And he's just with you, who's just the everyman anime character, main character guy. Why is this guy with me, and why the hell is he agreeing to do what I say?
I was going to say some of my favorite supporting characters are... Final Fantasy XIV has some good ones, because basically every main character has a story arc. So I don't want to talk too much because neither of you actually play, but they are all like interesting and they all have their ups and downs, their likes, dislikes. It's like I know that the creator said that when he wanted to make the story, he wanted each of the expansions to be like their own RPG, but I would say it's even more than that because granted, in most RPGs, you have a party of 8 people who all have their stories. And you could kind of say that all the other main characters in 14 are kind of like your other party members, but you never actually control them. But they're all like really interesting, and they're not like stereotypes at all, I would say, which is really good, and they're not cliche. But also, I would say the best Final Fantasy supporting characters are the Moogles or Moggles, however you want to pronounce
there you
it.
go.
Just because, like, they're in almost every game, and they in very many games are actually really important to the story. But in Dissidia, the phone game, one of the supporting characters is a Moogle, and you're not sure if he's like a double agent or not, which is really cool. If he's working for the good guys or the bad guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention the king in Etrian Odyssey.
So finish what you were going to say, and then I have something to add.
Oh, go for it.
No, I thought you were going to say the king in Katamari Damacy, who is another great supporting character.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you were going to say the king in Wind Waker.
I thought you were going to say the king and I.
No. Etc., etc., etc.
But no, I was going to say the king in Etrian Odyssey, or the mayor. I think he's called the mayor in it. The leader of the town in Etrian Odyssey. Now, I'm going to spoil this. If you really don't want to be spoiled on the first Etrian Odyssey that came out for the original DS, 15 years ago, you were never going to play this game. I mean, really. And what are we, like 6 games in? Come on. But anyway, if you skip ahead, about a minute or two, if you don't want to hear this. But he basically is your source of quests in the game. Just like most RPGs, where you go into dungeons and do a lot of, dungeon diving. You need a bulletin board system, and he's basically your bulletin board. Well, it turns out that the whole reason, there's an ulterior motive behind sending you into this dungeon the whole time. And it turns out that you were funding you were helped fund the entire economy of the town.
Yeah, that's super clever.
That was surrounding the dungeon. And the whole, people's curiosity around the dungeon is what's been funding the economy around this dungeon. And he reveals to you that he's basically the guardian of this dungeon. And at the bottom of the dungeon or at the top of the dungeon rather, is the post-apocalyptic world that life has left behind.
Yeah, that's insane.
But he was being the guardian basically by killing adventurers, by sending them into the dungeon, and making sure that everybody else has been making a living off of people buying swords to go in there and die.
Hey, I mean, he's doing it for his people.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Actually, who are some really fun supporting characters are absolutely Chloe from Uncharted 2.
Oh, I love Chloe.
Oh,
she got her own game.
Chloe and Sully.
Yeah. That was the other one. I was going to mention Sully, especially in Uncharted 1.
Especially Sully.
Well, especially Chloe in Uncharted 2, but for Sully, especially in Uncharted 1, because that entire game, you didn't know whose side he was on, and he went back and forth constantly. It's not like, is he a bad guy? Oh no, thank God. Like, he went back and forth like 3 times. It was ridiculous. Like, he kept doing things that, like, oh, I guess I really should trust him. He had a reason for doing that thing I thought was shady. But then he'd be shady all over again in a different way, and you're like, I really don't know where this game is going.
But yeah, since he stuck with you in all 4 games, like, he has a really good supporting character. I was gonna say, like, most of the main trio that doesn't include Drake were good, like Elena and Chloe.
Oh yeah.
I would say that Drake's brother was okay in 4, but I wouldn't really consider him a really good supporting character.
I did like him because his motivations weren't like stupid. Like there was one thing that I think the thing that really locked me in for liking him is, you know, Nathan Drake has been through way too many adventures where it's like sometimes you just gotta let the shit go. I've learned this after 3 games plus the Vita one, I guess. There's a part where, like, you know, obligatory, the big thing you're going for, the whole island is self-destructing. Like every game has done this, where the artifact disappears or the island disappears or whatever the hell it is, because otherwise it's like this reality, like this game-changing device. But for the 4 was more grounded. There wasn't supernatural stuff associated with it, but the island started collapsing. And what really got me, this is what locked me in, was Nathan's like, we gotta get the hell out of this island. And his brother's like, no, I gotta go for the treasure. But when the island really starts collapsing, the brother's like, yeah, this shit isn't worth it. And he gets ready to go with you, but circumstance kept him on the island anyway. Like, he fell into something and you gotta go save him. But it wasn't just some stupid rash bullshit. Like, he was like, yeah, no, I can let this go because I don't feel like dying today. I was like, you know what? Good. Finally.
Yeah. And I would say that the whole reason for me coming up with this list is I was thinking about how the evolution of the Legend of Zelda series has been happening lately. So these games, you know, the original Legend of Zelda, you really didn't talk to anybody, just people giving you stuff.
It's a secret to everybody. Money.
Yeah, come on.
Thanks.
Yeah, like, in 2, you kind of still were only getting, like, bits of information from people. Nobody had any personality, right?
Yeah, there was more emphasis on talking as a mechanic, but that was... Yeah, like, there wasn't really flavor, except for, like, I am Error and I am Bagu. And that's a joke nobody got for, like, a decade.
And then there's Link to the Past, which has a couple, like, goofy characters, but nothing too much.
Yeah, no one you can really talk to. Like, you'll see their animations, but like the goofy lumberjacks, but then they'll be like, you know, oh, my brother's lost in the forest or whatever. So it's just like, okay.
So, I would say the characters getting a lot of flavor to them didn't happen really until Link's Awakening, and then from there, all of the Zelda games had great side characters, like ones with a lot of and they've gotten progressively weirder and more bizarre.
Dude,
which is really
bug
cool.
Girl in Twilight Princess.
Yeah, no, I picked her, Agatha.
Tingle.
Yeah,
Tingle's insane as well.
So I listed here, I was thinking about people I could specifically talk about. So Agatha from Twilight Princess is
She's
creepiest
hilarious
fucking little girl. Like, what the hell?
No, but the funny thing is, though, like, everything she says and does is legit. You just find it off-putting. Like, it's like, oh, you got this bug. I love them for their cute little feelers and their adorable little legs. And she goes, like, way too into it. And you're like, oh, okay. but that really is it. She's not doing anything, like, shady. It's just, like, she loves bugs way the hell too much. But that's it. You give her bugs, she pays you for them. Thank you, now I have more bugs. But just her descriptions of them are just kind of like, okay, stop. Like, I get it. Like,
well, she also does some weird. She does kind of like an angry thing, kind of like the mask salesman when you don't give her one of the bugs that you have.
I've never seen that.
Oh, she gets angry that you didn't. She's like, I knew you had a bug. Like while you leave her her place of business. It's just like, wow,
yeah, and
Jesus.
Speaking of which, the Happy Mask Salesman, like, at least back in the day, I don't know what you'd think of him now, but back in the day, he was legit, like, off-putting when he got angry at you when you couldn't afford him, because his eyes, like, his pupils got tiny, but his eyes were open wide, so he has this, like, like, look on his face, and you're like, oh, shit. And, like, if you can't afford to pay him back for the mask you gave to somebody, then, like, he just kicks you out of his shop. Like, it just does the screen transition right there and you're outside. It's actually kind of hard not to be able to afford to pay him back, but if you can make it happen, he gets the crazy face, which I never saw under normal circumstances until, like, Majora's Mask, where it's in, like, a cutscene, where you, like, don't have Majora's Mask or something at the very beginning of the game. He starts like throttling you, and you're like, "Oh god!" and you can't do anything about it.
So yeah, I put in a special mention to the entire cast of Majora's Mask because like all of the characters in that game are like Funhouse mirror versions of already kind of like they're already pretty weird in Ocarina of Time, but they get even weirder in Majora's Mask.
Majority,
so you have like the Carpenters, who are pretty weird on their own, but then they're even weirder in Majora's Mask. You have the sisters at the Lon Lon Ranch in Ocarina of Time, but then in Majora's Mask they're like depressed girls that are basically like waiting to die.
Well, in Majora's Mask they're sisters. In Ocarina of Time they're the same person, like kid and adult. So that was a weird shift too.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Not only that, but their mission in Majora's Mask has straight up like aliens abducting cows, and you're like, what?
Yep, like straight up like UFOs.
And if you fail that mission, by the way, if the cows are abducted, or if you just warped to the third day where it already would have happened, that's like the saddest part of the entire game, because they're we don't have an economy, we're getting shut down, all we had was our milk and our cows, and now we don't have them, we're just gonna die, I guess. And it's just like, Jesus, like it's so brutal.
So there is also I don't think you guys have played Skyward Sword at all or know much about it because
no, I haven't.
It's kind of an outlier in the series at this point because a lot of people just skipped over it.
Yeah.
But there's one character in particular that it was really awesome. His name is Batro.
Mm-hmm.
So Batro lives underneath the town in the Skyward. In the floating island that you live on.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a demon that desperately wants to join society. So what you have to do is you have to perform tasks and good deeds in order to collect these stars, and these stars bring him his humanity over time.
Oh wow!
Wow, what is this, a freaking Souls game? God damn.
Yeah, but it's kind of goofy. He's a goofy character that looks super evil, but he's not evil at all.
You know, the funny thing was, I was thinking the opposite. Like I think it's in Link's Awakening, and it's definitely Links to the Past, where you think he's bad, but he's like accidentally good. Where like you meet the bad guy and he's like, "You fool! I will now half your magic." But what he actually does is half the cost of your magic spell, so he kind of doubles your magic. Like they had like a joke like that in Spooky's House of Jump Scares. It was like the worst reveal ever, where you have like a stamina meter in that game, and if you run for too long, then you get tired and can only go at walk speed. So there's a part in the game where if you advance enough, she goes, "Hey, good news. I'm going to get rid of your stamina meter." Like, how's that for an upgrade? But all that does is mean, like, you're restricted to slow speed. No, you're just restricted to walking speed. Like, you can't run at all. It's like, son of a bitch.
And for the last game that I'm going to mention in the Zelda series, I wanted to mention two characters in Breath of the Wild that I really love. Mm-hmm. First of all is Sidon. He is the prince of the Zoras. He is awesome. He's like the character that everybody loves. You basically he helps you out a ton, and he's like super positive like the whole game. He's just like, haha, yeah, we'll take care of this, and like he helps you out in a bunch of battles, and he's like super confident. He's really awesome, and he's super charming, really cool character. And the other character that I really love is the character of Cass, who is a wandering Rudo character. So that is the bird race from Wind Waker. Make an appearance in this game. So he travels around and tells you hints about some of the things that you need to do in those areas in order to accomplish, certain goals. Mm-hmm. And he sings songs, and he has his own side quest, and it's a lot of fun. He's a really cool character, and the songs that he plays on his accordion are really fun and just toe tapping things. I love you can there's even somebody who has a loop of what he plays.
Nice.
For like 10 hours, I think, on YouTube, something like that. So
I think the last characters
awesome.
I'll mention are from Zelda, Gabra. Yeah, no fucking chance. No, but for real, I actually the character type I enjoy is not the villain, but the rival, kind of. Like, again, Uncharted 1. That guy actually wanted you dead, but, like, the situation never quite called for him actually trying to kill you. Usually, you'd be trapped in a cell, and he'd be like, haha, got you now, and then something would bust you out. He'd be like, what? Nani? Like, it was very much like a movie. And by the end of the game, like, things got so bad in the background that you guys had to, like, reluctantly team up for a little while. But there's also, unfortunately I forgot his name, but the rival treasure hunter in Skies of Arcadia, Domingo. Because it can be really frustrating, because if you're too slow at finding some treasures based on what plot points you've triggered in the game, when you go to turn in your discoveries, sometimes it'll be like, well, Domingo beat you to it, so I'll pay you less for it, but I'll still pay you for it. So it was really cool that once you get X number of discoveries, he'll just join your party. He'll be like, oh, well, you're the better treasure hunter, I guess. I'll be a support member during battles. I'm like, sweet. So, like, I just like seeing, like, not the villain, like, not quite villain level, but the guy who's always kind of, like, up against you. Gary Oak is kind of the exception to this, because he's just a dick the entire time, and he's always, like, one-upping you, like Porky and Mother, like Mother 2.
Oh, yeah.
Like, those are not the fun kind, but the Uncharted 1 and the Skies of Arcadia rivals in that sense. Skies of Arcadia was more good-natured, Uncharted less so, but it never got to the point of, like, where you feel angry at the rival. It was more like you actually kind of were excited about seeing him again, just to see, like, how the exchange between him and Nathan Drake goes.
That's awesome. Any last mentions?
No, I think I covered all the ones that I wanted to mention.
Okay, awesome. So I will move on to Vize's weigh-in. I maintained my weight this week at 255, so I'm proud of that. And I will continue on. But once again, I want to give anybody encouragement who is doing this kind of thing to, keep yourself in the right headspace. If you fall off track, remember to get right back on, rather than ignoring it or anything like that. So I'm here to give you the encouragement you need, as well as ask for it. So we can move on to our reactions. I want to read real quickly one thing that I thought was funny that General Ledger said. In keeping with Lotus's quirk of addressing media in order, you need to have an Iliad episode first. That'll also give you two red-haired Menelaus episodes.
We missed it. God damn it. All right, redo all of Corrective Consciousness. Start over.
So I should mention that very few scholars believe that Iliad and the Odyssey were written by the same person, so
interesting.
I must mention that.
Thank God, we're good.
It's still
we're
canon.
This podcast is canon.
I think it's just assigned to the guy that they call Homer. Homer like recited them. Mythical Homer. Did he resend?
Well, no, recited. Although actually, come to think of it, though, this might have predated writing anyway.
Yeah, so I think they have two different total sentence structures and things like that, and poetic structure. So it's not likely that, like, even in their original ancient Greek, that they were written by the same person.
All right. Well, I got a fan response as well, and this is in regard to the topic of CoreCon last week. Dracologist had said that he's had a few, like, Moby Dick, like, white whales of a game. He still wants to get Savage Skies and Viruz. I assume that's how it's pronounced. Vyruz. And he said he just got Final Odyssey, so I guess that was a white whale. And as for stuff, this is response to a fan question. This was Fakavon's question. Anything you've, like, walked out on, like a movie or reading a book, for some, like, seemingly minor reason? Dracologist had said that he dropped the Aragon series, the novels, because the main story and characters started to go in a direction he didn't like. So, fair enough. But as for the question for this week, Carrick52 asks, what is the best and best is, like, depending on what you think of it, like, game feel or straight up power or whatever. What's the best bow you've used in a game? Carrick's vote goes to the one in Horizon Zero Dawn or in Dragon's Dogma.
So, I mean, I have to agree that the one in Horizon Zero Dawn was pretty baller. I mean, not just because you can, like, get different ammo, but that in that game you have many different weapon types. And I don't usually like using the bow because I usually find it kind of annoying to use. But I used the bow through the whole game because it was so fun.
Yeah, go ahead.
There are a couple choices here. I mean, the Horizon Zero Dawn, you can't ignore it. It's really fun. But I do like the bows in Breath of the Wild as well, because it's so satisfying to hit off a critical hit on an enemy as well. And I do have to put out a mention to the Far Cry bows as well, because using a bow in those games is insanely important, because it's the silent way to kill bad guys. Yeah. So before you can get a lot of the silencers in the game, the bow is the best way for taking down an entire outpost. So get good with it.
I was also gonna.
I was just gonna say for that. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say for that exact reason, because I haven't played Far Cry, but for that precise reason, I'm gonna go with the bow probably in the Tomb Raider reboot, because it's a silent killer, and you could eventually get an upgrade for it that allows you to pick up arrows that you've shot. So that is supremely useful. So as long as that is to say, arrows I think you've shot and missed. I forgot if you could pick them up off of bodies, but if you can, then that's basically infinite ammo as long as you don't shoot into like an inaccessible area or something.
Yeah, I think in Tomb Raider, I don't think you can pick up all your ammo. Ones that you miss, definitely, and I think enemies have a chance of having an arrow on them if you kill them with it.
Yep.
Okay.
But yeah,
I think that's one of the perks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Those are all good, and I will say that I think most bows are done pretty well. It's just if they're useful to use. Like I was thinking of in like the Elder Scrolls games, the bows aren't that bad to use, but in a way, there's never a reason to use a bow. So why use a bow?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how I feel about Dark Souls. It's like you can upgrade them to the point where they're really cool to use, but they never feel good to use. Like when you hit an enemy, it's just like stick damage.
And they feel and they feel kind of cheap sometimes, because you usually only use them to cheap out on the game when you know that you need to.
Yeah. The only thing I will say, I don't have experience with this personally, but I would imagine that maybe it would feel good to use the Dragon Slayer Great Bow in Dark Souls, because when enemies use that on me, they use those stupidly big Dragon Slayer arrows, and even if I block them with a Great Shield, there's pushback. So it's like, damn. Otherwise, this might not be the most expected answer, but like Ocarina of Time, not really in general, but I would say specific situations. Like if you can, like hitting Ganondorf with a light arrow just really fucks him up, and it just looks super cool.
I would go as far as to say that Ocarina of Time had the first good 3D good feeling 3D representation of bow and arrow.
Yeah, it was at least smooth, which is
fun.
It was smooth, which is more than can be said about like probably like OG Kingsfield bow usage and things like that.
I will also point out a probably one that that people weren't thinking of as well. So this is a crossbow, and I believe that still counts.
It does just say bow, so who knows?
No bow staffs. That's BO.
No.
Oh wait, no, they were. Carrick meant bow.
Most powerful bow we've used.
No, the crossbow in Half-Life 2 is fucking awesome
you're right.
to use.
I
It's
forgot
so
there was
much
a
fun.
crossbow in
Yeah, the
Half-Life
things
2.
that like pin guys to walls and stuff, where it's just like, shung, they're gone.
Yeah, you basically shoot heated up rebar at people.
Yep.
Isn't that what you shoot at people?
Oh, that's
Something like
fucking I forgot about that. That's really
so much
good.
fun. So satisfying.
Yeah, that's probably the most powerful bow, I think, if it counts as a bow that I'm aware of in games like that. I think Fear might have had something similar where it's just like shunk, like game's over.
Yeah, but I mean, there's similar. There's like the stake gun and painkiller, but it's not nearly as fun as the
stake
crossbow.
gun is damn good, but yeah, Half-Life 2 for real. Like where you can duck, like get right up in an enemy's face, duck, aim upward. They're just on the ceiling now. Like I think Half-Life 1 Source kind of played with that as well, where you're just pinning enemies to like wherever you feel like it, and if anybody comes in after you, like some NPC comes in after the battle's over, it'll look like the scene from like a horror movie. Like people are just stuck to walls and ceilings. Like holy shit, who did this?
I actually used to play the Half-Life 2 deathmatch for a little bit, where you could use that on like people. So you're fighting people, and all of a sudden you die, and you see your body stuck on the wall.
Yes. Do you get the experience of like flying backward when you get hit?
No, it's just like I think when you get hit, it counts as you dying. But then you know how like afterwards you can like see the area around
see your own body,
and you just turn the camera around, and you just see your body stuck on the wall.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
That's pretty crazy.
All right, well, I think we explored that topic pretty good, but if there's any, I want to also do a quick shout out to the bow and arrow in Princess Mononoke when he's using this demon arm.
Oh. That was insane. I
wish
saw
that was in a game.
Yeah, I saw that movie when I was in middle school. And when he got, like, the demon arm, when he fired the bow...
Oh,
like,
so cool.
He hits a dude and just, like, takes his head off, with an arrow. I'm like, fuck this!
I saw that when I was in high school, and I think my mouth was agape for, like, quite a long time. Because I've never seen an anime, like, do that. And I'm just like, what just happened?
Yeah, that was outrageous. That was like in Dragon Ball Z where Nappa just punches Tien's arm off. Like, punching an arm off? What does that mean? So like an arrow taking I think the arrow might have taken an arm off of some other guy as well. It's like, Christ.
It's so cool.
That wasn't really the bow, though. It was more of his arm, but he did use a bow.
Yeah, but I just wanted to do a quick shout out because I thought of that. Now, so we got to wrap up here for this week, but please do post your reactions. Definitely put up your thoughts on what bows are awesome to use in games. I'm sure there are plenty of bows that we didn't mention, forgot, or didn't even realize were out there. So,
well, I can promise you, Crysis 3 pushed the bow hard, but I've never played that game.
Yeah. I actually only recently bought it on Origin, so maybe we'll hear a bit about that. So that's the show for this week. We want to thank our fans that contributed questions. Please keep us supplied. Keep them coming, guys. You guys are doing great with this, with awesome topics by submitting questions of your own via the YouTube and SoundCloud pages. Keep your reactions going on there. While there, give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. Also, once again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but please migrate to the new YouTube channel, the Corrective Consciousness YouTube channel. It helps promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. And if you can do some sharing on social media of your favorite podcast, I would very greatly appreciate it. You can also catch us on Tuesdays on our sister podcast, Reactive Consciousness, the in-depth look at this week in our lives. That didn't change. Finally, you can friend me as vysethebold on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, Twitter, Battle Nerd, and
Battle Nerd,
Swarch.
And you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you would like to see my videos early, get in on exclusive live streams, select upcoming games for me to Let's Play, and participate in a Discord chat with all other patrons, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
And you can find me as PyroJackFrost or Clado8540 on various gaming media and Facebook,
Twitter.
Maybe. Not Twitter.
Actually, not Twitter.
Instagram. All right.
How about Friendster?
Yes, Friendster, MySpace.
All right, guys. We'll catch you on Tuesday on Reactive.
See you next week,
everyone.
Everyone. Everybody.
You mean everybody. Nice. Bye.